Hello, this is Derek Henry, founder of Healing the Body and creator of the Thrive Online Health Program, and today I'm talking to my good friend, Mr. Frank Tortorici. Frank is originally from Long Island, New York, but now resides in Los Angeles, California, where he provides personal training and nutritional counseling to his clients. Frank is certified through the American Council of Exercise, CrossFit Kettlebell, and Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. He also happens to be one of my favorite people and one of the few trainers I know of that understands the importance of proper nutrition for your fitness and overall health goals. Welcome, Frank.
Derek, awesome to be here, man. Thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. It's always nice to talk to other passionate people who've come such a long ways from maybe where they started, and that's part of probably what you got here. So, what I want to start out with here in this conversation is I want you to kind of relay to everyone out there about often you look at people now and you think that that's where they've always been. So they see the Frank Tortorici or they see the Derek Henry in this great health. And when you see people in that state now, you never think that maybe they had a problem. Maybe there was an issue in the past that got them here. So what I want to do is, I want to talk about how you got here. So maybe if you can give us a little bit of background and tell us a little bit about your story, where it started and where, you ended up now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So my journey started. I'd say I was around. I was about 6 years old. My dad had developed the onset of multiple sclerosis, and it was a very mild case. He was working midnights, working day jobs. So he was really run down. Got a diagnosis, and at that age, he exposed myself and my rest of my family to. He got really into his health at that moment, trying to reverse and try to heal himself. So he started following the teachings of Gary Null, who is a PhD. He's a very well-known author, lecturer, amazing man. So at the very ripe age of 6 years old, I was exposed to a lot of these talks, lectures, vitamins, supplements, different types of meals to reduce inflammation. So that was at six. Then about a year and a half later, I started developing symptoms of Tourette's syndrome. And people who it's not a very common thing. So Tourette syndrome is basically it's an overabundance of, say, dopamine in the brain, which creates involuntary movement. So the best way to explain it to somebody, it's like you can feel a sneeze coming on, but you can't completely stop it. I mean, you can hold your breath and do whatever with the sneeze, but that sneeze is coming. Same thing with like a tick. It's like you can feel your brain like prepping your body for this movement, and there's really nothing you can do about it because your brain is telling whatever part of that body to do this certain tick or twitch or contraction. So that's what Tourette syndrome is. And there are, there's the stereotypical cases of shouting out vulgar words and, clucking like a chicken and barking like a dog. I suffered with more facial, muscular body. My stomach, like if I drank a lot of water, it would almost sound like a waterbed because I'd be kind of moving my intestines around.
Mm.
So that's what I suffered. Those were those symptoms that I had as a kid. Uh, and I always tell people growing up with Tourette's, and I deal with it till this day. I mean, I've reversed, I'd say, about 95% of my symptoms, but it's still there. I think you either grow out of it or you don't once you hit your teenage years, and I didn't. So I just had to find ways to reduce it and improve my quality of life. But suffering with it and dealing with it as a kid, I always say it was the best way of describing it. It was like having cancer of your soul. It hindered me. I became very introverted, always wondering what people were thinking, when, where, and why. You would never catch me in a library or a movie theater. I didn't like to be in quiet places because I felt like all eyes were on me.
Mm.
So you just very self-conscious, very hard on myself, and it made me take life way too seriously as a child. And I think I missed a lot of my childhood that way of just being light like a child should be, you
Mm-hmm.
know? Um, so I dealt with it for quite some time. My parents took me to therapists, they took me to doctors, and obviously at that point in time, the only things that were shoved down my throat were prescription drugs. And luckily, as a kid, I was pretty smart. I never wanted them. I always kind of was like, oh, no way. And finally, one time I gave in. This one doctor put me on Halidol, or haloperidol, I think it's called. And it's a pretty vicious, sick drug. It's like a psychotic medication. It made me loopy. I tried it for about 10 days. And I remember finally I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I remember one night trying to eat dinner with my family and felt like there was like a 100 pound, 500 pound gorilla sitting on my chest. I could, like, the anxiety, my heart, it was like speeding me out, and it was like, this is no good. So after that, I just suffered with it.
Mm.
And in the midst of all that, I picked up working out. I was 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, and I started exercising, and that was like my lifesaver, my lifeline at that time. It gave me that outlet to, at the end of the day, I remember I'd come home from school and I would just be drained because all day sitting in class and taking tests, I'm constantly like fighting these. Again, I bring back that sneezing analogy, like when you feel it
Mm-hmm.
coming on. Well, picture holding a sneeze in from 8 o'clock in the morning till 3 o'clock dismissal. That's what going to school was for me, day in and day out.
Mm.
It was just exhausting.
Mm.
But even at that point, when I would come home, I'd start doing my push-ups. I had a pull-up bar. My dad had some dumbbells, and I just started playing with that stuff. I just started feeling like what I feel now, in the sense, after a workout, but after a great, say, meditation, like, just to be able to just like have that feeling go through your lungs and through your body. Like, as a 13-year-old kid, that was an amazing thing to feel at that time, from feeling like this all day long, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it really provided something magical for me at that time, and it just kind of segued into other things. When I started working out, I remember that year for Christmas, I was begging my parents for a Solo Flex machine. I'm really aging myself here. I'm 40, by the way. 40, just hit the big 40. Um, but I started working out at home with that because I was too young to go to the gym. And then about a year after that, I wanted to join the gym. And I remember my dad after work would take me and just sit with me there, and while I would work out, and I was at that time reading magazines and reading bodybuilding encyclopedia books and all that, so I had a general understanding of how to work out. Obviously, I didn't know what I know now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's kind of how it all started. And when I was 15, I entered my first all natural bodybuilding contest, which was, it's not easy to do something like that. At 15 years old, that required a lot of discipline. I would wake up before school, go and do 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, go home, shower, get ready, go to school all day, take my meals with me, because when you're dieting for a bodybuilding contest, it's a whole, like, depending on the person. I was doing 12-week body weight cutting for the contest.
Mm.
And so it required a lot of discipline. And after school, I would go do my weight training, practice posing. So it was really it was like going to the military. I willingly went to the military at a very young age, of giving me structure and discipline. So I did that. And then at 17, I did my second all natural bodybuilding contest. And then I kind of finished on that spectrum, because I just kind of started seeing, as I was in the gym, I had a lot of friends who were older, who were getting into competitions and all that. And I just realized that this sport, it really is. From the natural perspective, it's a dead end sport, because the money, and it's not even a lot of money, but to make a career out of it, you've got to pump your body. You got to be a walking science project, willing to
Mm.
pump your body with all kinds of hormones, and you name it. And that's what it is at the top levels. And I don't knock those guys. That's what they do. That's their sport. That's their profession. That's their passion. I just think the risk reward is, when you try to weigh it out, it just doesn't. There's no balance there. From what
Yeah.
I saw when I was 17, I said, okay, this is not. But I had such a passion for this stuff. Um, and through all those years too, I wasn't doing. I was doing what I thought was healthy at the time.
Mm.
High protein diet, synthetic bodybuilding supplements. Um, Cutting down my fats, which was not good for a person with Tourette's syndrome, and we can get into
Mm.
that later on too as well.
Yeah.
So I was really on at that point, a slippery slope. I'd say from 16 and a half to 17 till about 21, 22 years old, I just went downhill, in a sense. I never gave up working out. I started getting into fitness modeling. I started doing some commercial work, some acting work. I was in New York City at the time. But when I say downhill, I started self-medicating a lot,
Mm.
and going out to all types of nightclubs in the city, after-hour nightclubs, and you name it, alcohol, designer drugs at the time. It was like the whole Studio 54-esque type places, although Studio
Right.
54 way before my time, but it was all that type of an environment. And I just, I finally was like, man, like, what am I just had like an epiphany one day. I was like, what am I doing? This is, I come from a very close family, hardworking family, and it just, I started psychologically feeling like a black sheep in my own family mentally, because I knew what I was doing was wrong, and it was something that if my parents ever knew at that time, they know now. I'm very open with everything, but at the
Hmm.
time I knew it would have crushed them. It would have absolutely crushed them,
Yeah.
because that's not where I come from. Um, so fast forward, I went through all of those dark moments and depression and all that, because that's the aftermath of that stuff. I mean, when it's in you, you feel great. And what I loved about when I was self-medicating was it actually made my body feel calm, and that's what was so like appealing to it. Because again, living in Frank's body 24/7, it was like that all the time, dealing
Right.
with these ticks, trying to deal with them. So having that feeling was like it was very welcome.
Hmm.
Um, and it's funny because I remember at those times of even being in the party scene, I remember people would come up to me sometimes and they'd be like, "Hey, smile, it's not that serious," because I was always thinking. I was always like,
Mm.
and I still am. I'm a thinker. I'm always thinking. I'm always like contemplating things of what I'm doing, who I'm surrounding myself with, what are the benefits of it. Like I've always been that type of a personality with how can I better myself? Is this all there is? Like what else can I work on myself, emotionally, spiritually, and even physically? So I've always been that type of a brain. Um, so fast forward now, I get through all of that, and in June of 2000, I decided to move from Long Island into New York City. And at the time, one of a fashion photographer that I'd shot with, he knew of a model that was living in the city as well that was looking for a roommate. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I want to get out of Long Island. I want to really live in the city. I want to like be around different kinds of people, all walks of life, art, culture, etc. So I did it. Turns out my roommate at the time, he was a competitive cyclist, but he was a raw foodist at the time. He was a raw vegan who was only eating raw foods. And I remember when I was living with him, I was still in my bodybuilding mentality in June of 2000 at the time. So I'm there with my, I'm embarrassed to say this, my microwave turkey meatballs and my my my
Yum.
canned my canned string beans and my bagged salad with my low fat salad dressings.
That's awesome.
Oh, so so I remember seeing this guy like eating everything that he wanted to eat. He was going down to Chinatown buying all the young coconuts, the durian fruits, the house would stink. But he was making all these smoothies, making these like exotic stuff. And at the time, the raw food movement in New York City was really booming. There was a lot of gourmet raw food restaurants everywhere. So I remember like just to myself like wow, because what I used to struggle with and when I was in the whole bodybuilding mentality was you would try to bulk up to put on muscle size and then you try to lean out. And
Hmm.
really at the end of the day, when you go through that bulking up phase, all you're doing is like becoming a bloat bag. You're filling your body up with water, gaining excess cellulite. And if you gain 1 to 2 pounds of like pure muscle in a year naturally, that's good.
Mm.
So and these guys are like natural, and they say, "Oh, I gained 25 pounds this off season." It's just feed your ego when you step on the scale. There's really
Hmm.
nothing to really write home about in that sense. So I was intrigued because at that time I was getting more into doing print work and some modeling work, fitness stuff, and my desire was just to stay lean all year round. I didn't care about getting big. I just wanted to be as toned as possible.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? I said I'm going to give this a try, and I gave it a try just from the physical standpoint. I knew nothing about how this stuff can affect me with my symptoms of Tourette's at the time. Um, so I started doing it. I went from, again, a heavy meat eating diet to the processed foods to, I went to started doing like cooked vegetarian, then cooked vegan. And then in about 6 months, I was 100% raw. So that was about, like, I'd say about January of 2001 is when I was like 100% raw at that time. And it was pretty amazing. I mean, the first like 4 to 6 months, I felt like crap because I was definitely detoxing like crazy. My body was just going from, I think, a pure acidic state to now an alkaline state.
Hmm.
Um, and I could just share this one incident. I remember it was yesterday. It was a Sunday night. I think it was like in February. I remember I was riding home on the 5 train, heading back uptown. It was a Sunday night. I was over at a friend's house. It's like 9:30 at night, and I remember getting on the subway, and I remember feeling a little like just nauseous, and I was like, I didn't think anything of it. So I'm riding on the subway. The train's getting a little more crowded. And then finally, this guy gets on. He must have been a chef because he reeked of like fried foods. And he was
Uh-oh.
standing next to me on the train. And I was like, oh, it just made me like, I don't know. I was so sensitive because I felt nauseous already.
Yeah.
So I stood up and I'm holding like the pole now. And I remember feeling like my legs like getting like rubbery. And I'm like, oh no, this is not good. I'm like, this is not good. So I remember the stop was, I think, 51st Street or 59th. I don't remember. And I got off the train. I literally, the door opens. I took one step onto the platform and boom, I blacked out face first, split my nose open.
Oh.
And some guy was generous enough to wake me up. And I mean, people must have thought I was high or something.
Yeah.
And I just look up and he's like, sir, are you okay? And I was like, I didn't really even know where I was because I blacked out, and I don't even know how long I blacked out for. I don't think it was that long. And I didn't even thank the guy. So if he ever sees this, much love. Thank you. I remember I ran upstairs. Now, mind you, this is February, so it was cold in New York.
Yeah.
And part of the reason maybe why I felt like this is I was all bundled up. You know, I was, so once you get in the subway, it gets hot, but
Yeah.
it was deeper than that. Get upstairs, start shedding all my layers of clothing off, and I'm just down to a t-shirt, and I'm like, oh my God, this feels amazing. It had to be like maybe 11 degrees out that night. I don't know. It was cold. So the next day I was like, wow, this is scary. So there was a very well-known herbalist at the time on the Lower East Side in the Village, and called her up, made an appointment. I was lucky enough to get an appointment with her that day, and she started. Herbalists, when you go to them, they look at your fingernails, they look at have you stick your tongue out, look at your tongue, look at the whites of your eyes. One thing I forgot to mention too, at this time, I was breaking out like crazy. I'd wake up every morning and I would see about 3 to 5 pimples on my face, but nothing that would come to a head. They were like those welts where you would just get red, and you tried popping them, it would just swell up even more. Like it wouldn't even like come to a head, you know? So I was getting really frustrated through all that too, because I'm like, man, I'm drinking green juices, drinking wheatgrass, eating salads. Why does my skin look like I'm eating Domino's pizza and Doritos? So I went to the herbalist, and she was just like, sweetheart, she was like, you are detoxifying so rapidly. You went from like acidity to alkaline too fast, and your body just can't release the toxins the way it should by coming out when you go to the bathroom. That now your skin is your largest organ, so now all the toxins, they can't come out the way they naturally should all together. So now they're going into your blood, then coming out through your skin, causing the breakouts. Hence the reason why you blacked out. She's like, your blood was just becoming toxic, and that's why you blacked out. So she put me on all different types of cleansing herbs for the blood, the liver, the kidneys. Started doing some tea, just straight tea fast through her for like 3 days at a time. And then things started changing. The skin started clearing up, started feeling more energy. And then that kind of sent me on my way. So where the next like 3.5 years, I felt amazing on the raw food diet. And then at that time, I start traveling to Los Angeles. This is now in 2004. And I move out here, and I'm still raw at the time, but I started realizing it was hard to maintain a 100% raw lifestyle out here. It wasn't as much gourmet accessible like there was in New York City, which was shocking to me. You know, and look, I'm Italian. I love food. So if food doesn't taste good, I'm not a happy man. Like I need to enjoy my food. You know, I was raised on mangia, you know.
That's right.
So I need to enjoy my food. So I've always been blessed to meet different types of naturopath, herbalists, Ayurvedic doctors, things like that. And I met this one doctor who really influenced me a lot at the time. He was treating a lot of people with terminal diseases and having a high success rate with them. And not to get too much into his story, but one thing he kept telling me, he was like, Frank, I'm telling you, you need to be on a better high-fat diet, because my gum lines were receding. I was complaining to him that I felt just weak and I felt achy, and like my workouts, I was just kind of getting through them. I wasn't really breaking through any plateaus. And mind you, as a raw vegan, I was eating dark green dandelion salads every day, mustard greens, heavy wheatgrass, heavy dark green juices, pumpkin seeds, avocados, coconuts. So it was a pretty well balanced raw vegan diet, especially from a building standpoint of having those fats and the greens with the amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so finally I just got to a point where I was not feeling good, and he said, "Look," he's like, "just try having like grass-fed steak tartare. Just try it and see how your body responds to it." And it was so tough. And this is what I try to, when people contact me for wellness coaching, the one thing I try to drive home with them is, please don't stay married to a title. Don't be hard on yourself, because at the time, and I think it still is true, when you're like a vegan, it becomes almost like cultish. Like, I'm a vegan. Like, if you're not, and I was in that mindset. I was at a point where I felt like if people were eating anything but plants, they were like doomed, and little did they know, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right, I had to sit down with myself. I remember looking at myself in the mirror and be like, all right, dude, like, what's your deal? You got into this because you wanted to be healthy, and now you feel like crap. So what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember my girlfriend at the time, she was plant-based too, and we tried it, and we made a little steak tartare. And Derek, like, I remember having it within like an hour. Like, I just got like, I felt like I was back in my body, like my veins, and like I just got this surge of energy, and I was like, wow, this is like speaking volumes to me now. So I never looked back from there as far as being 100% plant-based. I now live my life where I'd say I'm about 70 to 75% plant-based.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 80% on certain days, and then the rest is like, will be some grass-fed beef, some pasture-raised chicken, maybe some wild fish here and there. But the bulk of my meals is still plant-based, and one meal a day I will have an animal protein now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been able to find that balance for myself, and that's where I like to educate people, because I kind of came through the whole gamut of vegetarian, vegan. I still am gluten-free. That's what started me on this too, is experimenting with gluten-free and how that was affecting my twitching and just energy and all that. So I really am able to, when I work with people, I'm confident in helping all kinds of people, because I didn't just read this stuff out of a book and now I'm preaching the gospel. I'm very well versed in gluten-free, vegetarian, vegan, paleo, macrobiotic. I mean, because I've played with all of them, and they're all important elements of my lifestyle. So that's what I really brought full circle to myself, is that it's not necessarily what you call yourself, paleo, vegan, vegetarian. It's what works best for you. I mean, we all have the same moving parts of machinery in our body, but all of those parts in my body and in your body, as I know you know, are going to require something a little bit different for it to run optimal than the next person. So that was a real like humbling and maturing moment for me through the evolution of my health journey, basically. And that's really what I try to drive home with each and every individual that I work with, everything that I post on social media, any video content that I put out there. That's really the be all end all message that I put out there.
So that's it sounds like you ran the gauntlet, and my story is similar, where you tried pretty much everything in nutrition, in therapies, and herbs, and other lifestyle habits, exercises in there, and you had a lot of different things going. And for me, I agree with you, obviously, because that experience that I had and the experience you had taught you more than you could ever read in a book. Now, and that's nothing against research and reading things. That's important too, but to have that feedback from your body, understanding what works, what doesn't, what times, in certain times of your life, you may require more things, and less of something else. And for you, and for me too, when I was going through, my situation, there's certain deficits and certain toxicities that you're getting rid of. So, at one time you may be really short on a certain nutrient that at some time you may be fulfilling that need by eating certain types of foods. Like in your case, maybe it was the steak tartare. There's something within that food that was really speaking to you that maybe was a big deficiency. And as soon as you're able to take it in, you listen to your body and you discover that, wow, this is making a big difference. I'm glad that I kept an open mind to it, because if you didn't and you were the raw vegan and that's the way you're going to stay no matter what, then you would have closed yourself off to perhaps having that moment. You would have closed yourself, and who knows where it would have went from there. and
Right.
having all those experiences, it's nice to be able to bring those things all together. After a decade of experiment, however long it was, you can bring all those things together to find out what the right diet is for you and your goals and what you're doing.
Sure.
So I think a lot of people think that, and they may be right in a lot of ways, and you described kind of your past, trainers often eat very, very high protein diets, sometimes a lot of synthetic supplements, things that aren't necessarily too good for the body, and I'm putting that lightly. But now I know you as the guy that, and I did the same things when I, used to, not for a living or not competitively, but I used to work out a lot, and I used to eat, 2,500, 3,000 calories a day, and my job was eating, and my digestion wasn't catching up with my eating, and there was more things going wrong than right. I looked okay physically, but internally, it wasn't happening. So it's nice when you can bring the two together, where you can bring the internal stuff together, and you can have that physical presence, and you have that, like you said, spiritual and mindset presence too, and you bring that all together. It's a beautiful thing, so that's a great story.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people, wonder, people always want tips in terms of, what you're doing. You hinted at some of the stuff you do with your diet. But if you had to name one thing, and let's say diet-wise, if you can, what's one thing that you do typically on a daily basis that you believe has really helped keep you in the great health and shape that you're in?
Green juice, man.
Green juice.
I'm a big believer in fresh pressed green juice. There's not a day that goes by that I do not make it. Um, and why do I say that? I think when you're doing like an all green pressed juice with no sugary fruits in there, you're getting all the obviously the amino acids, the minerals from the plants. You're getting the chlorophyll, which is cleansing to the body. I just look at it as something that I'm getting the most bang for my buck as far as building my body and cleansing my body at the same time. And I think that gets really, really overlooked. I think we're all very dehydrated too. So
Mm.
even people who are in the health field, I think drinking, hydrating the body and the cells is a very like overlooked thing. We all focus on the superfoods, the meals, the this, the that, but just staying hydrated. So I would say, yeah, green juice, and I believe it or not, in the last year and a half, I've really honed in on making sure that I get anywhere from 90 ounces to a gallon of water every day.
Mm.
Because I was lacking on that. I was focusing more on the foods, and yeah, you get the you're eating celery, cucumbers, watermelons, things like that. Yeah, you're staying hydrated that way too.
Hmm.
But there's just something to be said about having a fresh pressed green juice or getting in those types of ounces of fresh water every day. I think it's something that's so simple but yet overlooked by a lot of people.
And that's one thing I love about you, Frank, is that you're so different, and in a good way, obviously, with in terms of trainers and things like that, personal trainers, because I can imagine with many of them, you're not going to hear green juice as something they even do part time, let
Yeah,
alone every day. But as you
yeah,
pointed out, I mean, we're approximately 70% water,
yeah.
and green juice, like I said, highly hydrating, very alkalizing, especially if we're working out a lot, can really help calm those tissues that they get can get inflamed after workouts and just in daily life, and keeping that down, and just being able to get so many vitamins, so many minerals, and like I said, amino acids, lots of different things in green juice, and in such an easy shot. You can get so much nutrition from that one little shot, and enzymes, things like that. A lot of people are cooking their food a lot or eating processed foods, and those enzymes and stuff they're not there anymore. I mean, they're very
Yep,
delicate, they're gone. And being able
yep.
to do that on a daily basis, and like you said, still be able to get your protein in, since you're a trainer and you want, this is our obsession, right? Protein has become our
Hmm.
obsession. It's been what's marketed
Hmm.
to us, and not that protein isn't important, it is, but I think we've overly focused on that at the
Yeah,
expense of other things like enzymes,
yeah.
probiotics, things like that. I see a little bit of a shift now, but it's nice. It's a breath of fresh air to hear someone like yourself talk about green juice, where I think that would be maybe slightly odd in your industry. So
Yeah,
cool. I love green
yeah,
juice as well. So
yeah.
for anyone, obviously you got something going on there in LA, and you got a business going that's related to fitness, as we described before. But what's for anyone who works with you, what could they usually expect?
Uh, I would say, like, if I had to put it in one word, accountability.
Mm.
I think so many people start fitness journeys, they hire trainers, and they kind of get caught up in life, and just months, weeks, months, years pass by, and before they know it, it's like they just kind of ping pong from point A to point B kind of a thing. And what I like to do is I'm big on the whole accountability thing. I'm big on is, what are you, the client, doing when I'm not with you?
Mm.
Because that's the majority of your day. You're only
Yes.
spending an hour with me 2 to 3 times a week. What does it look like when you're out and about and going through your daily life? So I'm very big on, I'm very hands-on. I'm very big on, again, the accountability of checking in on them after the workout, see how they're feeling, just so I know what I could do different. I have a lot of my clients, those that are willing. There are a lot of clients that reach out to me and just want a kick-ass workout. They're not interested. They want to go to happy hour and do what they do.
Right.
And, I'm a big believer, as I'm sure you are, like, none of this should be force fed to anybody. The person has to want this stuff, because
Mm-hmm.
this is, it's more socially accepted now. I mean, God, when I did this back in 2000, it was hard. I was offending a lot of people, going to dinners and functions, bringing my own food, and now it's a lot easier. It's more accessible, but the accountability thing of really having them check in with me of, what are you doing day to day? What are you eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Like, what does that look like in between meals? How much sleep are you getting? So it's more than, what separates me from a lot of the other trainers is, it's more than just that hour we spend with one another and me just kicking your butt. Because it's like I tell people, all you're doing when you work out is tearing muscle tissue. That's all we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
What you put in after the workout and what you do day to day, week by week, month by month, but year by year, is how the body's actually going to grow and change. So
Mm-hmm.
I could be kicking your butt all. That's why I laugh. I see so many trainers that are great at what they do as trainers, but they know nothing about, like, real nutrition. They know nutrition, bro science nutrition, but they don't really know nutrition.
Yep.
And there's people that are working with these types of trainers, like, it's a recipe for disaster in the long run, when you're talking anti-aging, when you're talking reducing aches and pains and inflammation. It's not going to help if you have someone kicking your butt in the gym, but then they're taking you to GNC, getting you all these synthetic supplements and telling you to eat 6 to 8 meals a day
Mm.
with loads of protein in it. It's not going to end well. It's
Yep.
just not. Before you know it, you will be at the doctor's office. So I'm a very big believer. There are a lot of times when people call, like, oh, well, they'll find every excuse, right? I'm sure you see that. Oh, well, my budget for this and my budget for that, and I can't do this right now. But at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in life. You do get what you pay for. And if you don't pay someone now, to help you correctly, you're going to pay the doctor later.
Yep.
And there's just something to be said about working with a trainer, or working with a trainer that understands wellness,
Mm-hmm.
because we only truly get in shape when we start developing ourselves from the inside out. Now,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these people you see in these fitness magazines and all of these Instagram models, A, everything is almost photoshopped. B, a lot of them are on a lot of performance enhancement stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they may look good on the surface and in the moment, but I've worked with some competitive bodybuilders that are now retired. These guys, man, like the fitness industry, all that, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. The aftermath, when they hit my age at 40, they're crippled, man. They're
Mm.
crippled. I mean, thank God I had the epiphany at like 24, 25,
Yep.
and I've been living this, I mean, June of 2000, so I was younger, I was 22. Thank God I was able to process that, because I don't think I'd still be able to work out at the level of intensity that I do and maintain my body weight, my body fat to muscle ratio. Like, a lot of these guys, the aftermath of living the conventional way, when they hit 40, it's a whole different picture that we're looking at.
Yeah.
So it's really, really important. And then you see a lot of the women in their mid to late 30s, early 40s, and again, they're working with these trainers. Well, as you and I know, like, if you're putting all this synthetic stuff in, the key to anti-aging is, how do we bring your body to a place of balance? How do we nourish your body's natural production of hormone production? That's
Mm-hmm.
when you're getting into anti-aging. Now the whole craze is all these, doctors everywhere are like they're all pumping hormones in people now too,
Mm-hmm.
bioidentical hormones. And look, do these things, can they help people? Yeah, I mean, they could. But if you're putting somebody on hormones and there's no correction in their diet and lifestyle, what I mean, from the doctor's standpoint, they're going to love it because the patient's going to have to keep coming back more and more and more because they're not really correcting anything internally and allowing their body to do what it does naturally on their own. um, so I just see a lot of that going on, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really it's a path to destruction, hands down, hands down.
And I think with an important point there too is I think in the old days, whether you're a trainer, you're a health coach, or someone else, that it was expected that the old school trainer maybe was someone who's in the gym with you for, like you said, an hour, 2 hours a day, shouting slogans at the person, go harder and do this and those kinds of things, and that you're in their back pocket all day long. And maybe
Right,
some trainers are like that in the past, where they're quote unquote watching them as much as they can. Like you said, they're gone. They're only spending like whatever it is, 7 or 8 hours
yeah.
with you, maybe a week. And
Oh,
there's
not even, yeah,
and
not
there's a lot
even.
more hours outside. That
Yeah,
what are you doing then? And I think
yeah.
now that for me especially, and I think probably the same for you, as part of this process is educating people on
Hmm.
what's happening, why you're doing this. Not just telling people what to do, but teaching them. This is why we're doing this. This is why you eat this kind of food. This is why you do this. So that, and I always say to my clients, when I put this into your head, the whole point of this is to empower you, but also to put in your head that you don't have an excuse that you didn't know that this was the case. Because the reality is, I don't have time to watch you, and I don't want to watch you.
Right,
I have 3 children to watch. That's what I need
right,
to do. But I don't have time to watch you. So what I'm going to try to what I need to do is it's 50-50 here. I'm going to present the information to you, teach you why we're doing this, so that you have that knowledge, and then the other half is on you, because
right,
I can't make someone healthier. Neither can you if someone's not prepared to go through the paces.
right.
And then again on what's happening after, as you said, you're breaking down muscle when you're in the gym, but the most important part after that is what are you doing to build it back up? And I'm not with you, and I can't watch you eat all your meals, and I'm not even going to put myself in that situation. So you have to teach people and educate them what they need to do, and hopefully that, like I said, they're disciplined enough, or want it badly enough, and are accountable to themselves and to you, that they're going to do it. And if they do, they're going to get the results.
Right,
So
right.
great. So I'm sure people would love to know so much more about you, and we can cover a lot of stuff in other videos. But
Sure.
today, for the sake of time, I want to do a fun thing here, something I call rapid fire.
Hmm.
And this is where I'm going to ask you a real simple question, and you're going to give a real simple answer.
Okay.
You ready for this?
Sure.
This
Why
is
not?
skill testing. We're gonna test your health IQ. Actually, no, we're not gonna test your health IQ. We already know it's high. But we're gonna give some people insight with some very simple questions here. Okay, so you ready?
Let's do it. All
All
right.
right.
3, 2, 1.
If you had to do one diet for the rest of your life, would it be keto, paleo, or vegan?
Paleo.
All right. Smoothies or juices?
Juices.
I think we already knew that one. Steak or tofu?
Steak. Grass-fed steak.
Grass fed. There you go.
Grass-fed, grass-finished steak.
There you go. Push ups or bench press?
Push-ups.
Push ups. All right. Flu shot or vitamin C?
Really?
No brain.
Vitamin C.
Vitamin C. All right. We knew you'd say that. Here's a tougher one. Sunglasses or no sunglasses?
No sunglasses.
No sunglasses. All right. You must be awkward in LA with no
Oh,
sunglasses.
man, I never wear sunglasses. Give me that vitamin D, baby.
There you go. There you go. Love it. Coffee or tea?
Tea, non-caffeinated tea.
Okay. Cool. Spring water or filtered water?
Spring.
Spring. All right. What's your newest, most favorite thing in the world?
My son. I just had a son in July, so he's my world.
That's it. That's it. Bringing up the new healthy
Huh?
generation. I love to see that. So
Absolutely.
awesome. Well, you passed with flying colors. Not that there was a grade on that or everything, but weren't too hard, those questions. This has
No.
been great. Frank, it's always nice to talk to you, and to chase some ideas around, and educate people in the way that we can do this. And we're very blessed to be able to overcome the things that we had to overcome, so that we can actually help other people, maybe not make the same mistakes that we did, and help them overcome them as well. So I'm looking forward to more chats. And anybody, give us, either give us a like or a comment here. This is something that Frank or I are considering doing on an ongoing basis, tackling different topics as we go forward. Pretty much, we could cover any topic under the sun, really. Fortunately, we're both pretty versatile on health topics, so we've talked about our stories, but in the future we could cover a number of different things with lifestyle and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested and you like this video and you want to hear more from us, then just simply put a comment below that you would like to hear more from us and maybe what kind of topics that you're interested in. But until then, Frank, again, I want to thank you. So anyone want to check Frank out and see what he's up to, you can go to franktortorici.com, and we'll put that on the screen there so anyone can check you out. And until then, wishing you all the best. Again, thanks for everything. Thanks for being on this call. And is there any last things that you want to say to the audience?
Eat real food. You won't regret it.
Nice and simple and perfect. Love it. All right. Thanks, my man. Have a great evening, and we'll be hopefully doing more of these in the future.
For sure, man. Have a good one.
All right. You too.